Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. And tonight we are celebrating the life of CALEB PIRTLE III. Okay. He was a wonderful man, and many of us met him all the same way when he featured us on his website. For Rob and I, it was in 2014. And we've loved him and appreciated him ever since then. He was generous, he was edifying, he was always encouraging, he was a friend to every author, he was a writer his whole life, and unlike many of us, he actually made his living through writing. He knew his craft, he knew how to use a word, he knew how to put a story together. But most of all, he was a good person, a kind person, a compassionate person. I never heard him say anything negative about anyone.
Ever.
He was always edifying and encouraging. But if you needed help, if you needed to get over a hump, if you were stuck, CALEB was always there, and he knew exactly the right thing to say. He was wise. He loved his wife. She was indeed the love of his life. He loved his son, his grandchildren. He never wanted to miss any of their baseball games. And he was a good friend to all of us.
We thank God for the fact that we took a trip out to Texas recently, and we were able to meet CALEB and Linda in person. And if we had waited, we normally travel in the fall, and we didn't do that this year. So I think that's a God thing. And I'm very thankful for that time to meet with them.
That was a God thing, God speaking to Rob, because I did not want to travel in the summer, but I am really, really glad that, I actually listened to my husband.
Yeah. There you go. No mind tricks here. Anyway, we have with us a group that of wonderful authors that was inspired by CALEB, put together pretty much by CALEB, and I would like to bring them on now, and we're all gonna.
I have one comment I need to bring up. First of all, Lonnie and Becca say hello. George Dismukes. Connie Clary says hello, everyone. George Dismukes says, I'm here and I'm honored to participate in this tribute to a wonderful person and writer. And that's true. CJ Peterson says he was an amazing man. He was. Becca, I know Becca said this. That is so amazing. God is so good to have you meet him and his wife. He is. Paul Hollis said, "Well said, Joan and Rob. We will certainly miss Caleb every single day." Lizette Brody said, "Hello to everyone. Beautiful words, so true." And let me just say at the beginning that Linda has asked, and she's watching, and she has asked that this be a cheerful show because that's the way that Caleb would have liked it. And
So we're going to try our best.
we will do our best.
We will.
Okay.
CW, would you like to share with everybody who the underground authors are and how they came to be?
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
as we've already said, Caleb was always trying to help his fellow authors. And so I had met him via, I think it was kind of like on Twitter, but it was the same way that, we all did. All of a sudden there was a book featured and got, hey, who the heck is this guy? And so that was like in 2019. And then I had to check some dates, but it was June of 2020. Caleb was putting together a group with the wonderful name of Author Marketing Co-op. and that was really creative. And but his goal was, like in everything else, he wanted authors to help their fellow authors.
Yeah.
And so he got together 11 other people beside himself, and the purpose was to just cross-market each other's books. So that was how we all started, and that began in June of 2020. Well, it didn't take too long for writers to decide, hey, we want to write. We don't want to just market books. I mean, who likes marketing? But anyway, I suppose there's somebody is. But so we decided we were going to do a short story anthology, and we did. It's Beyond the Sea, Stories from the Underground. And it was from that we kind of got our name, the Underground Authors. And now, I don't know, maybe one of us here can remember why we picked underground. I don't remember, but we did. And so from that title, we took the name Underground Authors. And then things were just great. The book was wonderful. It's actually, I think it's one of the best short story anthologies that I've read by indie authors. And I'm not saying that about my story. I'm saying it about everybody else's. But it wasn't more than a month after that I suggested we do a multi-author series. And 2 days after I dropped that idea, Caleb came in and he said, "This is a wonderful idea. Let's go with it. We're going to have a town and everybody's going to have a main character and we're just going to write books about this." And that was that. And so that's how we are today. So
I did want to mention one more thing that I meant to say at the beginning was, Linda said that he would have wanted it to be cheerful. And the truth is, and I'm sure you all agree, that whenever you spoke with Caleb, he could always make you smile or laugh. He really enjoyed doing that. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe not as much as Brakefield and Berkey, but Go ahead, Rose.
Oh, nice.
Say.
Nice. No, I CW, when you came up with that idea, I remember you specifically kind of likened it to the romance author anthology kind of town stuff where they would kind of group together and do stuff.
Yeah, they do.
And
I see a lot of it right now.
And exactly, Joan. And so, you know, it was kind of different to be able to do it with Cozy Mystery. And for to be honest with you, Caleb and I did talk a couple of times about this. And I said, you know, for us to do a Cozy Mystery, that's a stretch for us, a really difficult stretch. He goes, yeah, you can do it. It's not a problem.
And you did it well. I love your book.
Well,
yeah.
Well, no, thank you. But the point is, he was very encouraging about let's go ahead and do this, and we did. We formed this wonderful town called Magnolia Bluff. I mean, I want to go visit this town. Seriously.
Be careful, though.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. A lot of people. I wonder.
I get the life insurance benefits. Okay.
Oh, nice, nice.
I do want to put up what everybody has been saying, though. Jen Rome said, one of our romance writers that does anthologies, he had a big heart and a real sense of community. And Robin Madrich says, I'm sorry for your loss. It's wonderful that you were able to meet him and that you are having this tribute tonight. Paul Ways says, I am so sorry. I never met him in person, but I saw his tireless efforts to support others. He was an incredible cheerleader. That's the truth. Marjorie Deering says, I will always be grateful to Caleb for his generous support and kind words. A wonderful author as well as a wonderful man. And that's true. And Lizette said, if you go to Magnolia Bluff, you may not come back. You visit there, right? That's it. And George Dismuke says, the good news is that as a writer, his words and spirit will live on for hundreds of years. That's the truth. He is he was a powerful writer. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that when I was in seminary and I would haunt the bookshelves in the library and haul out these old books of sermons, they would always have in the front, though dead, yet he speaketh. And you know, that's exactly, you know, what George is saying, is that the advantage of a writer is that, yeah, he can live forever. And I think that, of course, there are an awful lot of authors who have vanished. So I do think it's incumbent on us who really cared about him that we do keep his memory alive, and that we do turn the table and push his books.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm glad that was a great segue. I don't know if it's or not, but this is called If I'm Not There, Did It Really Happen? By Caleb Pirtle III. It is a memoir of a storyteller. And if you want to know Caleb, you got me doing that now. If you want to know Caleb, read this book. You're all authors. You all know that a big part of you is in your books. There's a lot of truth as to who you are that comes out in your books in many different ways. This is his memoir. It's amazing. And you'll see what a really great person he is. We have some more comments about Caleb. Anita Dickinson says, what an honor it was to have known Caleb. He was such an inspiration, and his support of my novels was priceless. And Joyce Shelton York said, I'm sorry for your loss. He was a wonderful writer and so supportive and inclusive of those who were novices. That's so true. He was always had a helping hand out. Lizette Brody, I really want to read Caleb's memoir. You really, Lizette, it's worth the read. It really is. You get to really know him in those pages.
You know, and when Caleb's first book came out in the Magnolia Bluff series, I was talking with him on the phone, and I said that what really impressed me about the book was that a young person could not have written that book.
Mhm.
There was the volume of life experience and
Yep.
wisdom reflected in what Graham Houston said, that only somebody like Caleb could have written it. So when you say that, you know, we're in our books, there it was right there.
Yeah.
And you know, it's you know, that's very true. And so yeah, I have that on my list to read next. And I even bought a hardback of it, or paperback of it too, and along with the ebooks. So
Is that is this memoir recent?
yes,
No,
it's
Not
it's
too recent, is it?
yes, it
months
is.
ago, I think.
It's just came out before his Magnolia Bluff book.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
You know that.
Well, I love the title.
Yeah.
If I'm not there, did it really happen? And I love the picture on the front.
Well,
You know, I think one of the things that made Caleb so very special is his investigative reporting nature that he cultivated from a very young age. He dug in, he found out the details, he was patient about having interviews with people and having the details, and then he applied that concise verbiage to how he related it, which I think really set him apart from a lot of other, you know, newspaper writers and magazine writers, because he was part of Southern Living for I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
10 years.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
I
the-
love that bullet style he had. You know, it was almost like a point here, point here, point here. It was fun to read, and then he'd break out in just this marvelous prose. But that bullet thing, it was just that mix of styles that really was captivating.
Well, I'll tell you, Kelly, the first time I was exposed to his work and read one of his books, I was amazed at how few words it took him to put a concise picture in my mind about what was going on. It was just incredible. I mean, just boom, 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 like you said, the bullet point style, but you didn't need any more. I don't think he could have used any less, but it just came across perfectly. I mean, it was an amazing picture I would get in my head about what he was trying to convey from almost no words at all. And to be able to do that is just incredible, because I can't do that. I mean, I have to write a whole paragraph. You know? So it just, yeah, it's just, it was astounding to me how well done that was.
let's take a minute, and we're going to do a little short clip from July 5th, and this is talking about eulogy in black and white.
There's a lot of truth in eulogy in black and white. I'm an old newspaper man. I go back 40 or 50 years in the newspaper business. I published small town newspapers. I published large newspapers. And it doesn't make any difference what size of town you're in. There's somebody there who has a secret that nobody knows about, and it raises its ugly head, and the town is forced to live with it or die with it.
Yeah.
We have another clip from that day too, and we'll play that a little bit later. But
Yeah.
when Caleb spoke, you listened.
Well, and you know, he actually said that kind of often, that what he, in that clip, I know he had mentioned that, you know, in some of our group meetings, he had mentioned it to me when we were talking on the phone. You know, if the occasion came up, you know, it was something that I think he was really aware of. He was, you know, I mean, we all know that he, you know, there was always a kind word there in his mouth, and he never said, as the song said, he never said a discouraging word, and that's true. And I remember when, through his encouragement, I wrote a screenplay, because we had talked about my writing style and everything, and we thought screenplay would be a good idea. So I wrote the screenplay and I sent it to him, and he came back and said, well, this is like something that a really good author would write.
Yeah.
And, now that I think about that, I'm kind of thinking to myself, you know what? I bet he was telling me that was really a piece of crap. But after he said that, then he gave me these wonderful suggestions on how to help him see what was going on, and so, after I thought about that, I said, that was probably a Caleb's way of saying, this is junk and garbage, but here, I'll help you improve it.
Well, he wasn't saying it was junk. He was giving you constructive criticism.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
saying
well,
this is something a really good author would write. Now, what would a screenwriter write?
Yeah, what would a screenwriter write? Yes, that's true. But that's, that's really how I think he approached everything. It was, he obviously he would see if it was not a really good piece of writing or whatever, but he never crushed you. He always said something that lifted you up, made you feel good about yourself and what you wrote. And then he would pile on all these suggestions that he had prepared the way for you to accept, so that you could make your work better.
Right.
And that's what he was always about, making your work better.
Well, I'll tell you, like for me, like everybody else, my first experience with Caleb was, like I said, seeing him feature one of my books on his website. But we went back and forth a little bit. Every time he would do that, he would send me an email letting me know that he was going to do it. Yeah. And in one of those emails I got, he had suggested that he really wanted to, somewhere along the line, sit down with me and talk about writing. And it was just so cool to have him say that to me, because I'm like, why would you want to talk about writing with me? What the heck could I possibly put into this conversation with you? But just the fact that he said it, was really kind of uplifting for me. And, I didn't know him a really long time, because I wasn't in the first round of the Underground Authors thing with Magnolia Bluff. But a couple of weeks after I got that email from him, I got the invitation to, come on board and write a Magnolia Bluff book and be a part of the Underground Authors. And then from there, I got an invitation to be a part of a critique group with him, his wife, and CW. And within that time frame, which was, what would that run to? Maybe about 9 months or so.
9 months, yeah.
And it was an incredible, as CW had put it before, a masterclass on writing. Just watching him work and being able to, read as he was crafting that novel, put the one that's out now, as he was putting that together, and just seeing that, the way he did it was, and he would just go, well, I kind of whipped this together, and we're like, whipped this together? I couldn't whip this together in 100 years. It was it was amazing. And we would tell him that. We said, we're having a master class here, and it was terrific. And I'll be forever grateful for that time.
Yeah,
it was nice. It was real nice.
I don't think it can be overstated that Caleb was a great help to many authors that ran the gamut from just starting out to being published authors. And the second being that his knowledge of writing was second to none. And he helped me quite a bit. I think the current term in vogue for people that have a lot of followers or influencers. Well, Caleb was an encourager. And when I first met him many years ago, when I first started writing, one of the old Netwo writers conferences, which was on, I think, Camp Shiloh, and just started out. And I don't know how I caught his notice. To this day, I don't know how. I don't know if you may have shared it with you, Rox, but never. I didn't know. But he came up to me and he told me some, and he asked me what I was writing. And I kind of told him I was new then and still feeling my way. And he said, well, show me what you got. And I didn't have it with me then, but I saw him at some of the writers' meetings later. And just to be honest, it was not very good. But he always found something, something positive to say. And I will forever be grateful to Caleb, because the first novel that I had published came about at the same time ebooks were coming in vogue. And I don't know if y'all recall those times, a very tumultuous time in publishing, with bookstores going out of business left and right, and with publishing companies going out of business left and right. And that the company that I had used, that was traditionally published through, went out of business, went bankrupt. Took me a couple of years to get the book back and the rights to it. And Caleb helped me take the book from the bankrupt company and got it republished.
Wow.
And I don't think, I've talked to my wife about this, I don't think if that would not have happened, that I would have ever written another word, because your first book is always, whether it's good or not, is always your baby. And I will forever be grateful for Caleb. I'll forever be grateful for his kind words and for his wisdom and advice that he often gave for lowly people like me, that needed the encouragement and needed the advice. And I have never met anyone quite like Caleb. I suspect I won't meet another like him. And I mean that in the most positive and loving way possible.
Yep.
Wow.
And Mike, honestly, I am so glad that he encouraged you to write, because look what you've done with your career. You've been amazing. I think I noticed that Caleb didn't back people that he didn't think could flourish. And so if it's encouragement and gentle nudging and, suggestions abound, he made people write better.
Yeah.
Without even trying.
I agree with that, Rob. It's kind of like you, when I realized that Magnolia Bluff was kind of more on the cozy side, that kind of scared the what out of me. And so, but he helped me get comfortable with, writing in a different style than I was used to, and doing something different than I was used to. And I think it's a better book because of him. And there's no question about that. So.
Did he ever tell you how we met him? I mean, it's sort of a dim memory. I'll be blunt. We were at a book fair that was highly engineered to be unsuccessful, downtown Dallas on a Saturday, and we had this tent, and we were the only ones in it, the authors. You do realize that downtown in any city is nothing goes on. They all leave. They all go home. And so there's nothing anywhere close to being foot traffic for this. So as the phrase goes, the people who are staying away in droves. Okay. And so Rox is like, hey, I need some coffee. I'm going to pass out. Give me my usual, 2 quarts. And so I thought, okay, downtown coffee. Do you realize it's like blocks and blocks and blocks of walking? There's got to be something down here. I dare not go back without coffee. Okay. So I finally find a place. I get required 2 quarts of coffee for it, and I'm struggling to get them back, make sure they don't spill. And this gentleman taps me on the shoulder and goes, "Excuse me, young person, where do we find coffee like this?" And I went, "I can't tell if he's an offline detective. I can't tell if he's going to try and mug me for my coffee." I went, "What do you need?" He goes, I need to know where to get coffee because I dare not go back without coffee from my lady." I went, "Okay." So I gave, so I escorted him down to get the where you could get coffee, and we staggered back with the the 2 quarts for the 2 ladies, and then he said, "So you're right. Tell me about your stuff." And so we had a remarkable conversation, and that's it wasn't long after that when he started doing the same thing that the rest of you had seen, which is here's the one of the top 100 books that you need to read before you die. What an amazing storyline to be able to pitch from somebody who you helped find coffee on a Saturday morning downtown.
Yeah, he was great. He was great. A couple of comments here. Lonnie Becca Jones. Becca actually probably said this. "He seems like a beautiful soul. I wish I had met him. We can all keep his name alive by talking about him in his books. What an amazing ability he had to encourage other writers." Oh, definitely. And
I want to make a comment about his last book, because I was just today reading the funeral scene of Jumbo Jim Blanton. And what Jumbo Jim has done is get every, I guess posthumously, is get every preacher in Magnolia Bluff to show up for his funeral. And Ember Cole and Father Lee and, a bunch of others. And I think what Caleb said was he was taking no chances. So I kind of feel a little bit like art's imitating life. The one thing I wanted to say about Caleb is he had very much a gift that I've seen in a lot of really, really exceptional therapists, which is that if he needed to focus on you and make a point to you and speak right to you, he had a gift to do that. And it was an exceptional gift. Even putting aside his brilliance as a writer, he could speak to you. If CW needed something to be heard or he needed to say something, he could say something to CW or Joe or Rox or Charles or Kelly or Mike. He had a real gift for doing that.
Yeah.
Sandy Bazinet says, "Caleb was my inspiration. He demonstrated what exceptional writing could be. He was also the most encouraging person. He helped me to have faith in my writing," which he's done for everyone that's met him. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just doing a little research. I just went to his author central page just to get some, just list of his accomplishments. And I think what comes to mind for me is just the phrase, "a life well lived," because I have to think, in looking at his massive accomplishments, I'm thinking, did he ever sleep? I mean, he just was. I mean, if you look at the extraordinary amount of work that he did, and it was so excellent, and I wasn't aware of all the awards. So that was that part. His public persona was just so extraordinary and gifted. I mean, that phrase, "a life well lived," keeps coming back. And then on the personal side, just his extraordinary kindness, a truly Texas gentleman, if you will. I mean, he just was a gentle man. And I'm sorry, they were going to come through Seattle this month, and I was going to be out of town, and I was so sad that I wasn't going to be able to meet Caleb and Linda finally, because I never did. But I did reach out to, I met Caleb because he was part of something called California Times Publishing, which was an online company, and this publisher sought us both out to represent us. And I reached out to him, and the first thing he said is, he was very sad, but he said he was so extraordinarily kind to me as a publisher. And that's what I felt too, just his beautiful humanity. Now I'll be quiet and let other people speak, but I just am just blown away that a person like this, that I had the privilege of knowing him.
That's really kind of the surprising thing. I put up a little memorial thing on my blog for Caleb, and some of the comments that were dropped there, I'm glad they were. It revealed a little bit more about Caleb, but I think that most of the people he touched, he often sort of did it incognito. It was like we've said, it's all of a sudden, well, you get an email or you get a thing on Twitter, and it's I'm featuring your book, blah blah blah, and like, what? Who is this guy? And when that hit me in 2019, and like I said, I think I'd run across him on Twitter, because I wasn't very active on Facebook, so I believe it was on Twitter, and I don't know if he tweeted me or I got an email, I don't remember, but all of a sudden, boom, here's the link to my blog. I'm naming you one of the top 25 mystery writers that everybody should be reading. And I'm going, say what? And this comes when, I'm not selling 2 books a decade, in that series. I just stopped and I said, who is this masked man? And so I looked at his website, and I looked on his Amazon page, and I said, holy crap, look at this stuff that this guy has written.
90 books.
Yeah.
And I said, and well, it wasn't 90 then. I mean, it's like doubled in that time.
Yeah.
But I said, wow. And so then I picked, I just at random, I had no idea even where to start. So I picked his Man on the Run trilogy, just out of the clear blue. And right, Lizette. And, I read this, 3 novellas that read like a novel. And I said, holy cow, this guy can write. Where in the world has he been all of my life? And, and so our relationship kind of started from that. I started to, tweet back and forth, tweet his stuff, and he'd tweet more of my stuff. And then we'd exchange some emails, and then the whole thing with the author marketing co-op came through. And, that's such a wonderful title, isn't it? And so, the relationship just sort of mushroomed from there. And then, like, you were saying, Joe, these last 9 months is just been, it's like I've died and gone to heaven. Yeah.
We're going to run another clip of the man himself.
We're going to hear a little bit longer clip this time from May 10th, the show on May 10th.
Good.
So here we go. Caleb, you had mentioned maybe possibly reading a little bit. Would you?
If you got time.
Oh, we've got time.
We got all evening.
Paul Hollis said, another amazing show. I could listen to you all for hours. Don't leave yet. He's going to read from his book. You may be
listening to us for hours.
Yeah, you need to tell Paul his series of posts on Facebook about his career and life and writing is
Isn't it?
absolutely brilliant.
It is
Isn't
so.
People
Isn't
need
it?
to look that up. It's
It is
great.
so professional.
I agree.
I love it.
He is amazing. Paul Hollis is an amazing man and a great writer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great author.
Yeah, let me set up this little passage.
Okay.
Crystalline Flats has just risen out of the water.
Mhm.
And Graham Houston, it's written first person through Graham's point of view and his eyes. And he and his photographer, who was an out-of-work Narrowell editor and photographer named Rob Carter, is walking through the water out toward the ruins for the first time just to see what it's all about. And this is what I wrote. It's as though we have left one world and entered another. Time travelers who took one step too many and walked into the past, into a place that did not change when the rest of the world did, into a town haunted by the memories of those who strolled its sidewalks and drove its streets until the day the waters came to wash away any signs that they had ever existed. The concrete is firm beneath our feet. The water barely covers our ankles. Bottles and glassware and jars of all shapes and sizes lie half buried in the mud. Rob nods toward the open doorway of an old wooden church perched on a rise. The door has rotted off its hinges, and a sign above the entryway has long been gone. We ease carefully inside as a slender thread of a cloud crosses between us and the sun. The sanctuary turns dark, but only for a brief time. The pews are missing, the pulpit's gone, only a porcelain tub for a formal baptizing remains. Rob sees it before I do. He snapped off a half a dozen shots before I noticed the skeleton lying beside a rusted metal chandelier that has fallen to the floor and become entombed within a pocket of mud. The bones have become mostly separated. The skull is intact, its eye sockets vacant, its mouth hanging open as if it is staring into the face of death itself. And maybe it is. The bone that once held his forearm in place has been attached to an iron ring nailed with spikes into the decayed wood. The church was probably made from cypress, which is why it's still standing. Thought at first the victim had been handcuffed to the ring. He wasn't. He's held by a chain, and a place for prayer, a place for comfort, a place of peace, a place to die. Whose was the last name on his lips? The newspaper had printed the names of the 47 who had drowned. A tragedy, but an accident of nature. The newspaper was right. 47 did drown, but at least one was murdered. The poor soul might have escaped, but he couldn't. He lay, then knelt and waited for the end time. As the rising water crept up the street, through the front door, across the floor, moving closer and closer, higher and higher, and finally washing into his mouth and down into his lungs. Moments of agony, moments of dread, moments of fear, moments passing too quickly, but a long time to wait on death.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's very powerful, Caleb.
It was really
Amazing.
powerful.
Powerful.
And that's the way it was.
And that's the way it was.
You know what? One of the most striking things about that clip is that he took a moment before he read and said really kind things about Paul Hollis's blog.
Yeah.
Well, let me put this up. Paul
That's
Hollis says,
him in a nutshell.
Paul Hollis says, I'm going to cry now.
Yeah.
And that was Caleb.
Yeah.
That's why we used that clip.
Yeah.
That's Caleb. That's who he
Yeah.
it was. Paul Hollis said, brilliant writing. Yep.
Yeah.
Brilliant writer and
And you know that's the book that he was sharing with us in our critique group for the 9 months.
And that was the first that we knew that he'd made Rob a character in that book.
Well, we knew that ahead of time. So
doing these clips, I mean, he's crying. You know.
Yeah. We didn't say a word, did it?
Yeah.
No, nobody let us know. C.J. Peterson says, "Wow, incredible writer."
Yeah.
he was.
Yeah.
Joy Sheldon York said, "Gripping, stirring, great writing." Yeah, you guys, if you haven't read his books, you need to. He's
captivating.
You know,
he really is brilliant.
You know, Caleb himself thought that his Boomtown Saga was the best writing that he had ever done. He'd told me that on several occasions, and he said it to others too. You know, but I think that this last book of his, the Magnolia Bluff book, it's right up there with Boomtown. It's quite honestly, I think everyone really needs to read his Boomtown Saga, because that's set in the past, and it has the two most amazing characters that that anybody has ever written, quite honestly. Doc and Eudora are just absolutely fantastic people. They just are. I won't, you know, I'm not ashamed to say I'm in love with Eudora, and that's all. And that's because of Caleb's writing. It really, seriously. And, you know, I don't want to wish bad things on Doc, but, you know, that's how it goes.
His writing was rich. It just
very rich.
And he was able to write about the contradictions and the contrast in human nature, because it's not linear. There's a lot. I mean, that's what I loved about his characters. They were full, they were rich, they were good, they were bad. Eudora shot her husband.
Well, we don't know that, but but how did he die? You know, and you're absolutely right, Kelly. That's what makes Doc and Eudora so perfect, is the fact that they are so contradictory within themselves. They are really perfect characters. And, you know, Graham Houston, I think, is right up there. And the advantage we have with Graham is that it's first person. Yes. So we're much more intimate with Graham than we are with Doc and Eudora. And I know that when we were starting the Magnolia Bluff series, I don't know how it came about, but I had suggested to Caleb that he write it in first person. And he said, "Well, I've never written anything in first person." And I said, "Well, give it a try." I said, "I love first person, you know." And well, blow me down, he did give it a try. And it's like he's done it all of his life.
He is just, George Dismuke says he deserves the title of Bard of the 21st century.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And Sandy Bazinet said, "Here's a part of my review of his amazing last book, a scorching hot mystery that you'll long remember. Mysteries come and go, fleeting stories for the reader to enjoy, put aside and forget. Death in the Absence of Rain by Caleb Pirtle is not one of them. It's a one-of-a-kind mystery written by a one-of-a-kind extraordinary writer. It's a smoldering mystery that will stay with you long after you turn the last page."
Oh, that's absolutely right, Sandy.
That was beautifully written, actually, Sandy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous. And one of the things that reigns really true with all of this discussion is Caleb talked about authors and encouraged authors, but never from a perspective that he would gain anything. So it wasn't like what we see a lot in the world today. You know, the I'm going to do something for you because I expect something. No, that wasn't Caleb's style. he was naturally a nurturer, I think is the best way to say it. He wanted to nurture people's writing. He wanted people to be creative and stretch and do all sorts of things. And people came and asked him to write books, a lot of them, and he was all in.
Yep.
One thing I really liked was his capacity to write a compelling title. Death in the Absence of Rain, and also Eulogy in Black and White, I think is my favorite title of all time. I just love that.
Yeah.
Well, I like his memoir. If I'm not there, did it really happen?
Yeah. Right.
Very existential of him, wasn't it?
Yes,
Let me read what his cousin wrote, okay, that Linda had asked her to send to us. Hey there, I am Caleb's first cousin who grew up in southern Arkansas in the Mississippi Delta. Just received a call from dearest Linda Pirtle, Caleb's sweetheart and the love of his life. She is a ray of light wherever she trods. I was relaying some of the crazy but cute things I endured with Caleb as a kid. She asked me to relay one or two of our escapades. Also, I was a hard-headed girl with the need to rise and shine. Whenever Mother told us the Pirtles were coming for a visit, I headed for the library to bone up on Arkansas. When they arrived, I assumed I was ready to spar with Caleb. Here's how it went. I said, Caleb, Arkansas is the only state in the Union that produces diamonds, gigantic rocks that are known worldwide. With his heavy Texas drawl, he would look me straight in the eye and say, girl, there are more producing oil wells in Texas than rocks in a mine. Christmas time, the oil derricks are decorated with lots of lights and are so pretty. People come from worldwide to see them and take pictures. That would go on and on. He always won. He observed everything and everyone around him. Even as a young boy cousin, he was unique and bound for success. I loved him and I already miss him terribly. I'll publish all 56 of my daily diaries one day and I'll dedicate it to CJP III. That was from his cousin. We have one more clip of Caleb, and I think there's something really cool between Linda and Caleb in this. I think we left that in.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, there was always something very cool between Linda and Caleb. They're an amazing couple.
I mean, I think that they actually sparred with each other a little. I don't know. I don't remember whether we left that in or not, but I think maybe that we did. And yeah, 56 years of marriage, people, in this day and age.
Wow.
It's amazing. Okay.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
It's death in the absence of rain.
That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
That's what it says on my paper. Death in the absence of rain.
You want to tell us a little bit about that, but, you know, don't give away any spoilers.
Well, if anybody knows anything about Texas in July and August, they know that we're scorched. It's a scorched earth world. You get up in the morning, you look at the sky, and it's yellow. You look at the grass, it's turning yellow. You look at the flowers, and the ones that were yellow are now brown. And you look at the sky for rain, and you can tell immediately there ain't going to be no rain. It's that part of Texas, that part of the year when you have churches get together and pray for rain. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And then the basic plot is Magnolia Bluff is surrounded by Burnett Reservoir. It is a great fishing lake. It is the watering hole that's huge, and it kind of keeps everybody wet this time of year. And now they get up in the morning, they gaze out at Burnett Reservoir, and it's drying up. Cakes of mud, dry earth. You wonder if there's anything ever coming back to life. And slowly you realize that all of those secrets, all of those hidden secrets of Magnolia Bluff are buried in the mud of Burning Reservoir. And you never know who's guilty, who's innocent, who needs to run, who needs to stay. But slowly and surely, those secrets begin to expose themselves. And the people you least expected are the ones that wind up as the most guilty. You just don't know who, you don't know when, you don't know why, you don't know where. But they're there, and their secrets are slowly starting to recover from the mud.
No, we didn't leave it in. Well, that was when Joe Conjal said you could hear a pin drop after that.
Yeah.
You were
Exactly.
all. Okay, here's Cheryl Sullivan. Caleb was a kind, generous, compassionate friend. I hear his laughter today. I will ever picture his cleric-draped figure rushing through the doors of Central Presbyterian Church in the character of Martin Luther, waving the 99 in his hand and challenging the preacher. The church was stirred, to say the least. He will be missed by so many. I can see him doing that.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that, Cheryl. That's awesome.
You know, I think that one of the things that is so enduring about Caleb, and particularly for those of us who've known him for a number of years, is that whenever you're part of an author event, whether it's something like this, whether it's a conference, a critique group, a book event, of a meeting of like-minded authors, I can't tell you. I can count on one hand and have most of my fingers left over, where at least once somebody has related a tidbit on writing that they heard Caleb say.
From Caleb, yep.
That's right. The wisdom from, I call them Calebisms, but and I remember most of them, and they're just as true now as they were, when I first heard them. And one of the main ones, and I'll just say this one, and because I think it's one of the things that has rang clear with me of all the things that Caleb told me. And he said, he told me, Mike, and how Caleb with that southern drawl of his, it's Mike. Okay. Don't worry about the small stuff. If you have a good story, you can fix the rest. And it's that simple, and it's common sense, but sometimes common sense isn't so simple. You understand?
Right. Yeah.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. He dropped so many nuggets of wisdom. It was like a machine gun, and you're trying to collect them all. It was just incredible. I mean, every time I talked with him or asked him a question about stuff, and a lot of times he'd just say, well, geez, I don't know, and we'd sit there and bat the stuff around, and he'd, be dropping nugget here, dropping nugget there, and we'd talk about it. But he was also honest that way. I mean, if he didn't know, he didn't know. And he was up front, and he said, I don't have a clue about marketing. That's why we had the author marketing co-op, was to try to find out how to do this, and it really was. I mean, because he didn't know, and he and I talked about this quite a bit, because we both didn't know, and trying to find out ways, what was unique about what we had written, and that we could capitalize on that, but on writing tidbits, the one that he kept hammering with me, because I hate writing description. I should have been a playwright, and I don't have to write any of that stuff. But he would always come back and say, make me see it. Make me see it.
But he also told you, though, as you progressed on that, how he loved it.
Well, yeah. I guess I learned. So, but that echoes, in my mind, Mike, like you're saying, I can hear that, him saying, every time I put the pen to the paper, and I do literally put a pen to the paper.
We knew this.
Make me see it. And then he would go on and say, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be just one word.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Joe was saying, that Caleb could do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what Joe was saying, that he could condense it and he could make you see it with
Right.
2 or 3 words.
Right.
Yeah.
Takes me 50. Okay.
Right. Well,
And then you're bored reading all that. You're like,
yeah.
I don't want to read all that. But he could do it in 3 words.
Well, he could. And see, that's why I think, like you were saying, Joe, and we've talked about before, his books are literally a master class on writing. They not only tell who Caleb is, because they do, but they're also a master class on writing. If you look at what he wrote and you kind of tear it apart to see how he structured something, it literally is a master class on writing. He can teach you how to say it in 1 or 2 words.
Yeah.
That way.
I felt in many ways like I barely knew Caleb. I only met him a couple years ago and never in person. But after he passed, I thought, remember the time he said this to you, Richard? And this? And he said this about your title, and this about your comments, and this about what was in your book. And I thought, whoa, when did he have a chance to say all those things? And yet he did. A little email, comment, whatever. It was remarkable. And that was a tiny piece of what he said to everyone.
He said it really to everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, Richard. What you're saying is, listen to all of the comments that I read, all those authors. I mean, it blows your mind. He was an amazing man and such an encourager. He lifted everybody up. I don't know how he found the time to reach out to everyone that he did, but he did.
Yeah,
it's really true, Joan. And he also was able to write reviews on all of our books that really pulled all the salient points out. And the time he devoted to that is remarkable.
That's what I'm saying. He just was really, really remarkable. He was like this bright light in the world. He was a bright light. And now the world's a little bit darker.
Yeah.
Because he's no longer here.
Well, I was going to say, like, even things like if I wrote something in a blog post and he liked it, he would send me just a little email note saying, "You did a good job on that blog." Just out of the blue, and it was just, "Oh, you read it? Okay, cool."
Then on top of all of that, he always found time for his family.
Yeah.
He loved Linda,
his son,
and his son,
grandkids.
His grandkids. He found time to do all of that as well. Yeah. And just being in his presence when we met him, such a gentle nature, gentle and unassuming and kind. I don't know what other words to describe him with. But.
I had
Go ahead.
Oh, I had a thought, and I shared it with Richard, and I think somewhere, I think that there are people that in the world that when they leave a big hole.
Yeah.
You know, when their spirit is gone, it's irreplaceable. There's a sense of real loss, and that's not true with everyone. I mean, we grieve for many people, but Caleb had that kind of presence that
Yeah.
I think that we are all in especially in the months ahead too, as we continue with our writing, that there is a deep loss here, because this bright light that we've been talking about for so long right now has left us. And, you know, I sincerely felt that very acutely,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I'll tell you, I've never been so moved by the death of someone that I never met in person before as I am with him. You know, just incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and put the moose on the table here, guys. He would be disappointed if we didn't take up the challenge and move forward with part of that vision that he gave us. He gave us all a gift. Let's be grateful for it. But let's not be stingy with it. Try and replicate it. Try and do what he did for us for others. I think that would be testament for who we are and what his legacy was.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You are right. Well, on that note, does anyone else have anything else they'd like to share?
Just a big thank you for allowing this.
Yes.
You know, it's
This was good.
I'm sure Richard would understand this. It's a way of grieving, because I've had this kind of at the back of my, you know, just wanting to cry ever since I heard the words, you know, or I'd heard that he had gone. I just, this affords me the opportunity to express myself with my fellow authors. I just want to give a big thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You're welcome. It was the least we could do. Paul Hollis says, beautiful memorial. Eulogy in black and white and in living color. Caleb. Thank you all. That was Caleb. Lizette Brody, this was a wonderful event. I'm so sad about Caleb. And my heart goes out to Linda and all who loved him.
Keep her in
keep
your
her in your prayers.
Yep.
Because 56 years, and let me say this about Linda. She's a beautiful, intelligent, independent, strong woman. And she's going to be okay, but there is a huge hole in her life. And, you know, we need to lift her up.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Joe, CW.
Thank you for having the show.
Richard, Mike, and Kelly.
Thank you for all the comments in the audience. And it was wonderful to hear from so many people that we don't normally hear from, and to know that Caleb had touched your life. Do buy his memoir, and Death in the Absence of Rain. We have one more comment. Okay. Becca says, thank you. Lonnie and Becca say thank you. And one more, honey. CJ. Passing on his legacy of encouraging other authors and sharing their work is a great way to honor and praying for Linda. Well, thank you, CJ. And Joyce Shelton York says, all beautiful words for special man. Yeah. Lizette said, I just bought his memoir. Good, good. You will enjoy it very, very much. Okay. Well, Jan says, thank you, Rob and Joan, and to all of you who shared your love of Caleb today. Yeah, well, thank you, everyone who watched, everyone who commented, those of you who didn't comment, those of you that are listening to this just on a podcast. I encourage you to at least look at the beginning of this podcast to see the little memorial that we did without words
I'm gonna do
that
that
kind
again.
of shows.
I'm going to do it again
Caleb.
right now.
Well, if they're listening, they'll still need to go look at it
They will, yes.
because they still won't hear it.
That's very
There's
true.
no voiceover.
That's very true. That's very true. Well, we will be back next week, and the show won't be quite so sad.
No.
But
Thank you both for putting this together. You guys are amazing.
Right.
And Caleb would have enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, John.
you're welcome.
You're welcome. It's
Good
our
night.
honor and our privilege.
I guess until next time.
That's all, folks.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DV.com.